I hate answering the phone. I don't hate people. Well, not entirely. But people on the phone can't be read, only heard. In person, you read their body language, their expressions, what they're wearing. On the phone, all you have is their voice and what they're saying. In person, you can fill in the blanks of the words and context you missed, but on the phone, you have to be adeptly attentive to pick up every word over any spotty signal that doesn't care for words or in context. And don't get me started on the noise. Sure, one could adjust the volume on the phone itself, but you can't adjust the volume of the person on the other end. In person, you can tell if a person will be loud. Over the phone, you hold the receiver an estimated way away from your ear in hopes that the caller doesn't scream hello. People are unpredictable. But over the phone, they're complete enigmas. I refused to answer the phone as a kid, much to my parents' chagrin. Many important messages had not been delivered because I hadn't touched the ringing landline while Mom and Dad had been away. Mom knew it was because I was shy and couldn't stand the noise. Dad, however, couldn't understand. It got to the point that he wouldn't get up to answer the phone even if it was nearby. He would yell at me to answer it, glaring at me from across the room or through the walls, waiting. When I wouldn't answer it, he'd bring it to me and shove the receiver into my face. The person on the other end usually would sound confused because I couldn't say anything. Instead, I'd shake and sweat and bite back tears, trying very hard not to sob into the receiver. Eventually, either after the person sounded as if they would hang up or my dad caught a glare from my mom, he'd pull it away and answer it himself. After a call from my aunt that made me let out a wail after seeing my dad bringing the phone into my room, my dad was scorned for his behavior. My aunt had heard it all on the other end. "Why are you making her answer the phone like this when she clearly isn't ready? Shoving someone in the deep end doesn't teach them how to swim. If you want her to answer the phone, bring her somewhere safe where she can learn to speak up on her own terms. She won't speak on yours." Mom and Dad discussed it further and, without asking for my opinion, both decided to put me into speech therapy. I would go every Wednesday until they found I was comfortable with talking. I was furious, but part of me was somewhat relieved that maybe this meant Dad would stop stomping up the stairs with the ringing phone. At least with a therapist, I wouldn't have to cry to make them stop pushing me, right? The doctor they chose was stationed in an old complex that housed multiple business suites and offices. I tried reading the sign outside the door as Mom pulled into the parking lot, but there were too many words to process. Mom handed me my bag and reminded me that I'd find Dr. Dross in suite 405. "If you get lost, just find a sign or you can ask someone for help." I tried not to scoff at the second suggestion. Climbing out of the car and watching my mom pull away made me feel so much smaller. Suddenly, the building felt 10 times bigger, towering over me, ready to swallow me whole. My knuckles turned white around my backpack straps, flickered inside. The gentle glow and the receptionist calmly working at her computer gave me a sliver of courage, enough to pull the door open and step inside. When the door closed behind me, I heard a click. The receptionist lifted her head at the sound and smiled at me, her mouth open to ask if I needed help. That's when the lights went out. The windows were tinted, just barely letting the light of the setting sun into the room. I could see some silhouettes, but the rest was pitch black. A quiet humming filled the room as a set of emergency lights blinked on, letting a small ounce of light fall over everything. The desk was empty. The kind smile that the receptionist had given me had gone with her. I couldn't see any other places she could have gone so quickly. There was a flight of stairs twisting to the next floor on the right, and a hallway leading to ground floor suites on the left with a placard saying where to find offices and the elevator on this floor. Vague arrows plastered in imitation patina pointed in various directions. When I went to follow the arrow down the hall, I realized I had been covering my ears. I let my hands fall to my bag straps. That's when I noticed what was missing. The scream. The receptionist screamed when the lights went out. Not a startled gasp or a sob. She had shrieked as if she were being stabbed. The piercing shrill had stabbed through my ears and echoed off the walls. Now it was completely gone. She was completely gone. I gripped my straps tighter. Mom might still be outside. I could flag her down and tell her what happened, that this was a bad idea and we should find another doctor in a less freaky building. The humming emergency lights lit my way back to the front door, and I pushed the metal bar to step outside. It didn't let me out. It wiggled on its hinges but refused to budge. Locked. I cut my hands around my eyes to see if anyone was out in the parking lot. No one. Even my mom's car had pulled away completely out of sight. Pulling away, an itching feeling in my ears made me freeze up. What was I hearing? It wasn't the lights. The noise was deeper, more consistent yet rhythmic. The air around me felt heavier and my breaths became more shallow. Chills ran over my arms and back. Something was in here with me. Something big. Subtle but deep thumps echoed through the walls. The throbbing noise that made my ears itch grew more obvious to me the more I listened. It was everywhere, surrounding me. What was here that made me feel like I had already been consumed? A shrill ringing stabbed through my brain. It was the phone. An old faded red rotary phone sat on the desk, rattling in its stand. It rang and rang and rang. It kept on ringing. I wanted to ignore it so badly, but it was painfully loud, rattling endlessly, filling my head. Finally, with shaking arms and wobbly knees, I shuffled over and picked up the receiver. With a final ding, the ringing stopped. I just stood there. The receiver still hung in my grip right over the base where it had sat. I didn't want it to ring anymore, but I didn't want to talk to whoever was on the other end. But what if I had to? No one else was here. I couldn't hear anyone. No footsteps, no whispering.
Hello?
The voice in the phone was raspy, but not unkind. My hand trembled so much I had to hold the phone with both hands as I brought it to my ear. Hello? Just that one word made me feel like I was going to pass out.
Who is this?
My shaking made me slide down the desk, bringing the curly cord down to the floor with me. I'm not the receptionist. I just got here and all the lights turned out and she screamed.
Ah.
The caller sounded understanding, like they were nodding on the other end.
Are you on the bottom floor?
Uh-huh.
That isn't a good place to be after sunset. You're gonna have to trust me. I've been through this before.
My knees were up to my chin as I grabbed the phone tighter. What do you mean?
You want to get home?
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming the door's locked and no one else is around to help you.
Mm-hmm.
Then you'll have to follow my instructions. The safest place for you right now is on the roof. I can lead you there, alright?
As his words settled into my brain, I picked at the cord at the bottom of the phone. But it's corded. I can't...
There are lots of phones scattered throughout this building. If one rings, you'll know it's me.
The caller could probably hear my hesitation because a deep sigh made me flinch away from the receiver.
We need to get you out of here, kid. You have to trust me. I'll make it as easy for you as possible.
Slowly, shakily, I stood up, walking my hand up the desk to help keep me steady. Okay, I breathed.
Okay, first things first, you need to get up the steps. The next phone should be in that hallway.
A clunk fell through the speaker. It took me a minute or two to realize that meant the call had ended. I'd never heard the end of a call before. I gingerly put the phone back on its base, still shaking. The steps were carpeted in a rough plasticky way. It muffled my steps as I slowly but surely made my way up. That suffocating noise still surrounded me the higher up I went. It seemed to be getting louder. Part of me kept on screaming to shatter a window downstairs and bolt out, but the rest of me reprimanded me for thinking that. I was overreacting. It was just a malfunction. Surely this happened in all big business buildings, right? Then why had the receptionist screamed? I shook my head and kept climbing. None of that was important. What was important was getting out without hurting anything. The second floor was lined with empty offices. Some doors hung open, others were closed with small windows showing off the stark stillness inside. Whiteboards with half-drawn-out plans and smeared red markers shone in the emergency lights. Some chairs were tipped over on their sides, one was even still spinning. I tried to be curious, but the fear won out. All I could do was breathe. Even that was hard. Harsh ringing made me jump. I searched the corridor, but all I could see were doors and offices, no phone. I picked up the pace a little and covered my ears as the ringing grew louder. At least it drowned out the other noise, but still it grated through my head. Finally, I found another red rotary sitting on a coffee table in a small nook with a couch and plastic decorative plant. I still shook as I bent over it. My hands refused to move from my ears, knowing the ringing would stab through me as soon as I did. But screwing my courage, I quickly yanked my hands off and grabbed the receiver, pulling it away. The ringing gave a final echo through the empty halls.
You there?
The voice rasped. I let my knees come together to keep myself steady and slowly brought the phone to my face. Yeah?
Good. Do you see a sign that says Courage & Co.?
I bent back to look down the hall and spotted a plaque with arrows pointed to the left. 2 capital C's made me think that must be what it said. Yes?
Go through those offices. The hallway around them is blocked off by fire doors, so you can't get through the normal way. After that, you'll find the stairs to your immediate right.
Go through the Courage offices? No answer. He had already hung up. I put the phone back and squinted down the hall. Without the ringing and the talking, the hum of the lights and the spooky throbbing sound filled the building. I felt like I was surrounded in some kind of fog. Stiffly, I willed my feet forward, one step at a time. The 2 capital C's came closer until I could fully see the word Courage. I peeked around in the next hall and saw 2 heavy metal doors blocking the way. A sign right in front of them pointed me towards yet another empty office, this one sporting the letter C everywhere. The Courage offices. Glancing inside, I could see that they led around the fire doors, just like the voice had said. The offices were darker, and there was far more furniture to bump into. Desks, squishy chairs, trash bins. I think I even tripped over a pair of shoes. It was too dark to tell. What little vision the emergency lights gave me showed that this office was very neat. I only saw a little bit of red marker on some things, which made me start to wonder why everyone in this building liked the color red so much. I bent to squint at the little red streak across a leather chair, when something fell behind me. Slowly, ever so slowly, I turned around. A pitch-black lump was laying on the dense carpet on the other side of a cubicle. It looked like an empty trench coat covering something that was moving? My breath was shallow in my chest. I stared at the subtly twitching mass in front of me. Swallowing down whatever was lodged in my throat, I stepped forward. The black mass zipped away, knocking a chair away as it did. The chair bounced in front of me, blocking my way back. My legs felt like they could buckle any minute. Instead of climbing over the chair, I turned and made my way out the other end of the office, back into the brighter hallway lights. The opposite side of the fire doors looked a lot like the other side, except I could see the magnets that once held the doors open. The quieter part of my brain wondered what had caused them to close. The rest turned me away and back down the hall where I found another sign that told me where the stairs were. At the base of the next flight, I could already hear the phone ringing above me. I hesitated. Something around me was moving. The other constant noise had changed. The rhythm had moved to a faster pace, something closer to my heartbeat. The air coming from the next floor felt so much heavier, like something was blowing on me. My feet shuffled back without my telling them to. Something was up there. The ringing continued, but I stayed in place, right there in that circle of blurry emergency light. I couldn't bring myself to go up. That's when I felt the floor vibrating. My legs quickly started giving out beneath me. The rapid succession of up and down was too much for them to hold me up. I stumbled to the first step and pulled myself up. When I looked down again, it had stopped. Was it just me? Or the hallways I had just walked through much darker now? The emergency light at the top of the stairs made me scramble up, only to remember the piercing cry of the phone on this floor. I was met by a blank wall. An empty hallway stretched out in both directions, but the ringing was coming from the right side. The lights here were far more sparse, each one only illuminating the hall far enough to see the next light and nothing more. I hated the emptiness. The air here felt so incredibly heavy. I felt like I was breathing in water. Light by light, I made my way closer to the phone. It was on a small end table in the corner where the hall bent left. I took my hands from my ears and picked it up.
You're on the 3rd floor?
What is this place? I shuddered. It doesn't feel like a building.
Go down that hall and take a left. The stairs here are under maintenance, but the elevator will work. You'll know it when you find it.
I don't want to go any further.
Oh, and whatever you do, don't touch the walls.
He hung up. The phone felt heavy in my hand. I grasped it tighter. It felt safer to hold it. Looking back where I had come only left me feeling hopelessly lost. The lights had gone out that way. Only the lights down the even longer hall were left. Hesitantly, I put the phone back, my hands aching and missing its weight already. I took a deep breath of the thick air and started down the hall. One light at a time, I went. I could hear them turning off behind me before I even turned around to look, their humming growing quieter and quieter as their numbers dwindled. As the humming died down, the rhythmic noise crept deeper into my mind, the sound of a horribly slow current of wind and a deeper but slower current after a painful bout of silence. Again it came. Slow current, silence, deep current. Slow current, silence, deep current. As I softened my breath to listen, the realization hit me. The noise was breathing. The building was breathing. The voice's warning echoed in my head. Don't touch the walls. Fighting against every part of me that screamed not to do it, I timidly reached and let my fingers gently brush the wall. The noise stopped. The air stilled. My lungs froze with pure fear as my limbs lost all feeling. Suddenly, the floor started vibrating again. I fell against the wall to steady myself, but the wall shook too. The lights in front of me flickered, threatening to burn out. I ran. The ever-moving floor pitched me from side to side, but still I ran. A sharp inhale flew through my hair, and I covered my entire head against it. Growling shook the furniture in whatever rooms lay behind the walls. A scream louder than a passing train felt like it would tear my entire body apart. Finally, I made it to the next hall on the opposite side of the building. Caution tape covered the entrance to the stairs, revealing a not yet completed staircase with metal bars, showing nothing but an empty wall. The elevator was in the parallel wall. A light above it showed that it was working, but the chamber rattled in the cords holding it up. I pounded on the button, falling to the floor. My legs had been churned by the rattling that threw the building from side to side. The last light above me burned out, but still it shook. Just as the second inhale came, the door slid open and I dove inside, stabbing at the button for the top floor over and over until the doors closed. I slid into the corner and wrapped my arms around my head just as the elevator lurched upwards from the impact of the scream that tore into me so painfully, I screamed right along with it. As the elevator swayed from side to side, I bit back the tears that tried to escape my eyes and sobbed into my knees. The elevator shook and lurched into the side of the shaft, sending me sprawling across the floor. My hands left my head, exposing me to the deafening wails and cries of the monster below me. The tears fell from my eyes and my head felt so full of noise it could explode any second. The doors peeled open on the fourth and final floor. Through the screams and growls, I heard the chime of another phone ringing. It was on the floor, in the center of the open room. Cubicle walls had toppled onto each other, desks and their contents strewn to the windows bordering the walls. I sprinted to the phone and hugged it to myself, pressing the receiver against my ear. Please help me, I don't understand what's going on and I need to get out.
The door to the roof is right across from you. Go now.
Before he even finished talking, the elevator behind me plunged down with a piercing squeal. The empty shaft stared down at me, the darkness growing deeper and deeper. The phone dropped to the floor as I ran fast and faster to the door labeled Maintenance Personnel Only in bright red letters. Throwing it open, I felt the carpet leave me behind just as I leapt onto the concrete stairwell. I crawled up the steps and barreled through the door at the top. Fresh air hit me so hard I collapsed onto the bird poop-stained roof beneath me. Everything in my body shook and my lungs burned, savoring the taste of full, deep breaths. The cold stone beneath me, having lost all warmth from the sun it once held, bit into my aching legs. My hands were scuffed by the sudden roughness that I was leaning on. I looked at them, and between tears I saw some rug burns and gravel poking out. As I picked it away, the sound settled over me. There was no screaming, no growling. The quiet was so relieving. But it wasn't silent. A rattle and ringing drifted over the roof, drawing my eyes up to see a red phone sitting on the lip of the roof's shallow security wall. I slowly stood up and wove between stagnant air conditioning units until the phone was right in front of me. The still rising moon reflected in its fingerprinted lacquer. I lifted the phone away, letting the final ring fall into the empty night. With leftover shakes, I put it up to my ear one final time.
Well done. You made it out.
What was that? I asked.
I try to keep my feeding times to myself as much as possible, kid. You were just unfortunate enough to witness some of it.
The phone nearly slipped from my fingers.
You almost got digested with the rest of them, but you were slippery. You knew the warning signs. Or should I say warning sounds.
He laughed to himself lightly.
I'm glad you listened to me. Now I don't need the weight of a kid on my conscience.
A deep silence fell between us.
Anyway, hope you get down safely.
The call fell silent. A low and long beep signaled a deadline. I kept it to my ear for a while longer, then let the receiver fall from my fingers. I don't fully remember the trip down the fire escape. I remember even less about the car ride home. I do remember the concerned look on my mom's face when she saw how petrified I was. She didn't force me to go to any sort of speech therapy again. Later that week, the news covered the disappearance of multiple people, including the receptionist I had seen. Her scream still played in my head when I saw the picture flash across the TV screen. Dad complained when he saw that my doctor was one of the people that had disappeared. I didn't. Every Wednesday after escaping that building, I'd sneak back to look inside. It lay empty for an entire year before it was torn down. When I picked through the remains that day it was demolished, I found a rusty red rotary phone. While the cords were disconnected and severed, it still sat there and rang.